Hey, Spence.
Yeah, Shane?
I love you.
I love you too.
Have you seen Sleepless in Seattle?
No.
Okay, but have you seen You've Got Mail?
No. Wait, do you love me less now?
A little bit. Well... Now you've seen them both just in time.
Just in time.
For Valentine.
Because you and I are in love.
Yeah. I love you.
We just
caress, but slightly off camera.
Yeah, there we go.
So yeah. I figured for Valentine's Day I would recommend some of my favorite romantic comedies. I grew up watching a lot of romantic comedies. My mom loves a good, as many describe, a chick flick. I think that's super kind of demeaning.
I don't love that term.
But I grew up kind of on those movies. So I have a deep love and a deep appreciation, and these are two of my favorites.
Before we get there, I have this thing about the movie I Love You, Man, and you saying... You saying chick flick makes me all of a sudden go, wait, how do you categorize that movie? Because I think that movie is a rom-com about friendship.
Yeah, that's a dude flick.
A dude flick? Like, is that what you... I don't know. Anyway, sorry, that has nothing to do with anything. I was just like, wait a minute, how do you categorize I Love You, Man? You should watch I Love You, Man.
Watch I Love You, Man. So, tell me a little bit about your history with romantic comedies, what you like, and give me a little bit of your background on romantic comedies.
I don't know if I have a super hot take on this. Like, I've seen quite a few, like obviously these being two big ones that I had somehow missed, especially because of my love for Tom Hanks. I don't know how I missed like 90s, early 2000s Tom Hanks comedies.
Peak.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know why these were two that I hadn't seen, but I've seen a fair few. There's ones I desperately love, but I love them... It's tough, right? Rom-coms can often feel a bit problematic at times.
Yeah.
The worst of them can, you know what I mean? Where it's like, oh, is this what we're doing? But then you see some and you're like, oh, this is actually like great.
Right.
Now they do weird things to like people's perception of what a relationship, all that
100%.
shit. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about two movies that I enjoyed quite a bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with them. Like, I'll watch them now, like, because the distinction between like a rom-com, like a romantic comedy, and a romance movie is often The Big Sick, which is a movie you haven't seen, which will be a podcast episode. I love that movie. I watch it like twice a year. I love it so much. But that movie is a comedy and a romance movie, but it doesn't feel at all like what you think of as a rom-com.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's more of like a dramedy in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
It leans that way, even though it's hilarious. And so I like a lot of those ones that are like, they're kind of like, what's a great story about humans that also just happens to have them
like
falling in
About
love.
Time, I think it's a good
About
example.
Time is a great example.
It's got some great laughs in it. It's got a lot of romance, but it's about so much more. It's about just like love in general.
Her, Her is another, basically sci-fi love movies.
Just sci-fi love movies.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like I like these like weird human stories that center around the idea of love. Like, I think those are great.
Yeah.
And also I love a good rom-com in the traditional sense as well. And these being specifically, and we'll talk about this more, I found the comedy half of You've Got Mail like really effective on me.
Yeah.
That movie is funny.
You were so into it, and I was also so into it.
And not to say I wasn't into Sleepless in Seattle.
Right.
I think Sleepless in Seattle might be more original.
Right.
But there's just something about...
You've Got Mail is literally based off of Shop Around the Corner.
Yeah.
So it's literally, it's quite literally less original.
Yeah. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Tom Hanks.
This
is me asking you as a friend.
Come on the podcast.
Well, come on the
We've
pod.
done this like 3 or 4 weeks in a row.
That's going to be the bit every single time.
Hey, Tom Hanks was just on a podcast. I can't remember what the show is called. Oh, it's like... Oh, what's it? Dead Eyes or something like that? All right. So the background for it is, this guy has this podcast. I don't know what he does week to week, but the background for the podcast is he was in talks to be cast in the show Band of Brothers. which
Oh,
Tom
yeah,
Hanks
yeah.
was like a big producer on, like showrunner on or whatever. He got deep into the process, but got cut last minute by Tom Hanks because he said he had like dead eyes or whatever it is. And so he started like, now he's like a comedian or something, or I don't know, or he's just an actor. But I just like love that background story
amazing.
of like, and so Tom Hanks actually went onto his podcast recently and they had a conversation about the whole thing, which is super fun. That is
super cool.
What a great story.
But I just want to make one. Tom Hanks, do more comedies like this.
Right.
Your timing is unreal. The way you play a joke, it's like this should be nothing, but you're making it hilarious. Please do. Another Tom Hanks comedy I love is The Burbs.
Yeah, I mean, like that's where he started. Man.
Yeah.
Like, Turner and Hooch and like,
And not to say like I don't love his dramatic stuff. I do. I
Right.
love Tom Hanks, but man,
when was the last time he did like a role like this? It feels like it's been a while.
it's been a while, and I can't think of like a really great one. Which
Right.
I don't. He just needs a good comedic script. Like I don't know. Apparently, that movie, A Man Named Otto, is
Yeah,
like pretty
okay,
good,
that-
and
yeah.
he's kind of a grip. But I've also heard that movie's very, very sad. So
Yeah.
like I don't know how to gauge that.
Right.
Anyway, Tom Hanks, do more comedy. Come on the pod.
Come back to Meg Ryan, Tom Hanks. We need them back together.
That was one of my favorite ones. You've got mail starts and Meg Ryan's name pops up on the screen. And he looks at you and go, oh, dude, Jack Quaid's mom is in this.
Yeah.
It's such a dumb joke. But anyway, let's talk about these movies.
Yeah. So Sleepless in Seattle. What'd you think?
I really like a lot about that movie. There's very little I dislike about it.
Yeah.
I do think it's got that funny, like, the dudes in it are like making fun of every woman who loves this movie, and I'm like, I'm on her side.
Right.
You know, loving that movie so desperately and being so into it is great. That's one of those like weird little notch things where I was like, I think they think this is hilarious and it's not exactly that funny to me.
Yeah.
That was like the one notch I'll take off of it. But man, I love the like hook of the movie being they don't meet until the last scene.
Literally.
And yet you feel it so hard.
Yeah.
That to me is so impressive.
Yeah. I love how this movie is basically about people who have been watching romantic movies for their entire lives are now like trying to live out their romantic movie fantasies, and then they do because it's a romantic movie.
Yeah.
Like I just think that's really funny because like so much about this movie is like their or specifically her God, what's her name? Doesn't matter. Meg Ryan's character in Sleepless in Seattle. Her like love for movies like An Affair to Remember.
Yeah.
And like stories like that, just being swept up in it. And like it's in conversation with the romance genre itself, and I think that's really cool.
Well, that, yes, but also just its use of like the meta, like they'll call them privileged scenes where like you have a main character in a movie, and if you're going for a very hard POV, you don't get information that the main character doesn't get. A privileged scene is like cutting to the bad guys making a plan.
Right.
You know, that's like a privileged scene. So this movie uses the idea of that because it has two main characters with two separate trajectories coming into a climax of meeting in the middle and meeting in New York or whatever.
Yeah.
But it uses the idea of that of like, we, the audience, are aware that this is a movie and we're aware that at the end they're gonna meet.
Yeah.
And we're aware of all these things, but they use it like this longing they develop with it.
There's like a tension there too.
Yeah, it's
you know what I mean?
fascinating
Yeah.
that like other movies have done this. This is not like the most original thing of all time, but for
Yeah.
rom-coms, I still think that's a very fresh idea of having your two main characters be essentially separate the entire time.
Right.
Which is great, but they connect them in really interesting ways. Like when she's listening to him on the radio, they'll cut from a shot of him to a shot of her, and it makes you feel like they're closer than they are.
Yeah.
And they use all those kind of like meta film language things really effectively to
Yeah.
make me care about their relationship.
Yeah.
And I think that's super cool.
Yeah.
I think that's something that I did not know going in. I didn't know they weren't going to meet until the last scene.
Right.
Until, you know.
Yeah.
I knew very little about both of these movies.
Yeah.
But that was something that really stuck out to me is about 10 minutes in, I was like, wait, if that one's in a relationship.
She's in Baltimore.
And she's in Baltimore and he's over in... Wait.
Right.
I loved that. I
Right.
thought that was so interesting.
Yeah.
I will say also the other thing, like, talking between the two movies, I don't know why. I got immediately really invested in You've Got Mail.
Yeah.
I was in a silly mood. I was making jokes.
Which I was super into.
What did I say? Oh, I said the most unrealistic thing or unbelievable thing about this movie is that many people in New York know how to read. And then he laughed, and then I looked at him and said, Shane, there's a reason the streets are numbered.
It was so good.
So I was in just a silly, fun mood with that one.
Right.
But yeah, like the Sleepless in Seattle took me a little longer to get invested, whereas for whatever meta reason of me going into You've Got Mail, I was immediately into You've Got Mail, even though it's like less original.
I think the tone, I think the tone has to do with something like something with that. I think Sleepless in Seattle's a lot like has a much like slower like
it starts in a real sad place.
Yeah, it starts out as a cowabummer. But then like there's a lot like I think there's a lot more like emotions built up throughout the movie in a way that like You've Got Mail is it's just a little bit it's just a very different tone, I think.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like you're definitely right with it. Sleepless in Seattle is much better build.
Yeah.
Or better much more like intentional build than You've Got Mail does. You've Got Mail is definitely leaning more into the comedy and definitely leaning more into the like traditional way to tell these stories.
Yeah.
But in a way that I definitely am super into.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. It's You've Got Mail's got some of those lines where they'll say something to one another and it's just devastating. And Meg Ryan and Tom Hanks are so freaking good. They
so
play
good.
the pain of this like clearly they feel something for each other.
Right.
And then the pain of that happens, and then you're like, oh, man, you can't say that one. That's not good. Which is so much of what that movie's actually about, right? Of saying things you can't take back and feeling bad about it, and doing things you can't take back and feeling bad about it.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's interesting that, and both of them, doing them together was your idea, and I think that's really cool because
both Nora Ephron, both
Tom Hanks
and Meg Ryan. Like I shout out Nora Ephron. I think Nora Ephron was the best romantic comedy writer ever.
Potentially, yeah.
Like she wrote 3 of the absolute best ever.
Yeah.
When Harry Met Sally, Sleepless in Seattle, and You've Got Mail. Just that track record alone.
Yeah.
Like I feel like she's got like kind of like she's like the John Hughes of like adult romantic comedy, where John Hughes is very much like teen romance. Yeah, like I've loved all 3 of these movies for a very long time, and like Nora Ephron specifically holds a very special place in my heart. Like I mean, even outside of that, like she did Julie and Julia, which I really really love that movie too. Just shout out Nora. We miss you. The world is a darker place without you.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, like, and also shout out to Bill Pullman in Sleepless in Seattle. He's just like a sweet dorky dude, and just gets absolutely shafted in Sleepless in Seattle.
But I love his line. What does he say at the end of that? He's like,
"I don't want to be anybody that you settle for."
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, and there's more to that line, and I can't remember what it is.
I love that sense. Oh, no, that's another thing I really weird movie. I haven't seen it in a long time, but Sweet Home Alabama.
Yeah,
I remember that movie being kind of where she's in Reese Witherspoon's in a relationship, but she goes home and falls in love with this other guy. But the person she's with isn't a bad guy.
Yeah,
he's not like a villain. He's just like a guy.
They're just not right for each other.
Exactly.
Right.
I love that. I think that's such a fun and like the breakup scene in You've Got Mail.
Yeah.
I love that they're both just immediately like laughing. It's like, wait, is it somebody else for you?
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, nothing happened, but like it's this thing. And then with her, it's like the idea of someone else. Like, I don't know. I liked how healthy that was, where both of them are just
the same in Sleepless in Seattle, where it's like it is so healthy, where it's like, all right, if you're not in it, you're not in it. Like I don't want to,
yeah,
I don't want you to feel like you have to settle for me. Like I want,
yeah.
I think both of those scenes are like really healthy.
It's because that's not where the drama comes from,
Right.
And they know that, so they just want to represent a healthy breakup in a fun way, and I'm into that. I think that needs to happen more.
Yeah. Now you mentioned that like Bill Pullman's character is definitely not the villain in in his story, but like what Tom Hanks's girlfriend, she was the villain. She sucked.
And You've Got Mail.
Or did I say?
No, just making it clear. Yeah, she sucked, dude.
And You've Got Mail. She sucks so bad. Good shit, man. Good shit.
One weird thing about You've Got Mail, and I'm curious what you think of this. What's with the weird family shit?
I don't freaking know. Like, it's weird. I think it's just played for laughs.
It's just strange.
It's
though.
weird,
like,
man.
The freaking his like stepmom or stepmom to be, right?
Yeah.
All the weird shit, and then that doesn't go anywhere.
I think it's just I don't think it's much deeper other than the fact that she was like lusting after other people.
Yeah, but then
she ended up leaving his dad
for the nanny.
Nanny Marine.
It's just so weird.
It's a weird.
It's a weird subplot in that movie.
It's played
that I don't
for laughs.
Understand.
I think it's just for comedy.
What?
I agree. It's a weird choice. So like. Yeah, so we've talked a little about Sleepless now. Do you want to dive a little bit deeper in your thoughts on You've Got Mail?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what I already said. Tom Hanks is a comedic genius.
Yeah.
When he kicks the kid out, he's like F-O-X. He like kicks him out of the door. It's so funny to me.
You've Got Mail is particularly like funny.
Yeah.
You know, and like you really get to see like old school comedy Tom Hanks at his finest. And You've Got Mail.
Playing and having the time of his life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I love it. Now, there is a bit of me that is like, is it problematic that like he knew for so long and kept influencing it in one way or another? Like,
right.
Where does that lie for you? Has that aged weird for you?
No, because it's like, boy, it's not like he pressured her into doing anything inappropriate or anything like that. You know what I mean? It was like he had a piece of information that she didn't.
Like it felt to me like it was him wanting her to choose him over the guy online.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then when that didn't happen and then he showed up and it's like, oh, it is him. It was like, wait, how am I supposed to feel about that? Now, in the moment, I don't care because it's a fun, the dog, the most adorable dog ever.
Brinkley. Shout out to Brinkley.
Oh, whew. So yeah, it's like, I don't know how I feel about that aspect of like, I get he has a piece of information that she doesn't, but that's a fine line.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But it's like, I mean, like, I think you have a point of like, he was trying to get to a point where she would choose him over, NY
the idea of
152.
someone else.
Yeah. Like, and then when she makes the choice for him, she's nothing but relieved that it actually was him.
Yeah.
Like at the end, like literally she says like, I wanted it to be you so bad.
Yeah.
So it's like he gives her the choice essentially. But it's still
that isn't. Yeah, that's an interesting. I like that the way of looking at it that way. Right, like that's cool. Another thing I think is super sad that this movie plays with is right. There's this whole like uproar about this small bookstore getting kicked out, right? And then it still closes because people suck, dude. Like, oh my God, what? That was like one of those like hard things to watch.
Yeah, there's the kind of like corporate undertones and like what's the word I'm looking for? Like monopolizing all of like that is a weird part of this movie and a weird hard conversation that it just kind of really touches the surface of, but it's not what the movie is like about or what it's for.
No,
but I do think that is an interesting.
It was just something
side story.
Yeah, like something I definitely was like cognizant of. My review on Letterboxd was going to be like, all right, who wants to go to Barnes and Noble now?
Literally.
I didn't end up writing that, but
just hashtag eat the rich.
Yes. Eat the rich. I think it's probably specifically cognizant just with DC made those announcements,
right?
And now comic books connected to those announcements. Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, the Alan Moore Swamp Thing book, the Grant Morrison Batman book are like selling out everywhere,
right?
And people are ordering them on Amazon, and everyone's like, no, go to comic book stores, please. Like, they need your business. So it's like one of those things. Maybe that's why it was so on my mind watching it. Where I was like, but it's just interesting to see a movie so like ingrained in the idea of like the campaign and going to war over this and all the news things and all the protests and routine is like, there's no difference. It's not making any difference. It's super sad and just a big old bummer.
Yeah.
But it's not like important to the movie. It's a very romantic movie, very good movie. They have the best chemistry.
Yeah, my God, they those two together. Like I think they've done one in the past like 10 or 15 years together. I think they did another one, which I didn't hear anything about. I don't know if anybody likes it or not.
Did they do Joe versus the volcano
They did Joe
together?
versus the volcano together as well. So it's like these two are so perfect for each other on screen, and I love their chemistry so much. And they're both such beautiful people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shout out to Meg Ryan's hair.
Yeah.
Her hair is gorgeous in both of these movies. Shout out to whoever did her hair in both of these films. Oscars.
What a specific.
I saw a letterboxd review for Sleepless in Seattle that specifically mentions Meg Ryan's hair, and I was like, she does have great hair.
Yeah.
In specifically in Sleepless in Seattle, but then also in You've Got Mail. Damn it. Yeah. I love a good old computer.
I was gonna bring that up.
Old on-screen computer.
Starting the movie, I mean, it bookends, right? Like the movie opens on this computer screen and closes, like fading into a computer screen. Which I thought that end one was kind of fun. I was like, oh, it's a computer screen.
Yeah.
Man, does that date a movie?
Which, like, I'm fine with.
No. A movie like this, totally fine.
Right.
With. It's like the tech sci-fi movies of the 90s
where they're trying to make it look futuristic, but only make it look worse. It's like, just make it look like the Windows we remember.
I know.
We understand this movie is from the 90s.
Make it and I think that's going to be something we start seeing quite a bit of now, right? As of these like period pieces that are just set in the early 2000s.
Right.
Which is funny to think of a period piece that way. Not many people do, but it is.
Right.
A period piece is any movie taking place before the current times. Yeah. Whatever. That's the whole thing. That was very funny. I also think from Sleepless in Seattle, I asked you, I was like, can we get a map? Just like a map? We should put it right here, dude, for bits on the pod.
Okay, that would be sick.
I laughed so hard when he's like, what? And he grabs his son and pulls him over and pulls the map down. Yeah. He's like, here. Just like, it's over here. I love it. It's so funny. Yeah. Oh man.
Also, shout out to that kid in Sleepless in Seattle.
Most adorable little kid.
He's so cute, and he is so good in that movie.
He is. He's wonderful in that movie. I laughed because the babysitter had the same haircut as the little boy in that movie.
They have the exact same haircut, and I did not notice it, and I will never be able to not notice it.
That's my bad. But yeah, same haircut. If that does anything for you, I don't know if that's like your that's a comedy undertone that gets you. I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, no, I these movies are great, man.
Yeah. They hold a very special place in my heart. Like, look, in terms of like cinematic language, there's not a whole bunch going on. You know what I mean? I think they're just really well written, well acted movies. I think Sleepless in Seattle has some interesting camera work here and there, but overall, it's like pretty, you know.
Yeah, but like I also think, wouldn't it be weird if this movie was shot like Goodfellas?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And that's not to say that you shouldn't put all that like again, we talked about Her, we talked about Time. These really like beautifully shot movies. There's a time and a place for it, and it's about what you're interested in. And movies like this are so much more about like the things the characters say and do versus like, look how gorgeous this shot is.
See, like, I mean, and to that point,
and like, can you mix them? Of course you can mix them, but it was the time and the place. This was the style of these movies. This was the language of these movies. You were selling to the crowd that understood these.
Yeah,
that's what you did, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Like, I think Sleepless in Seattle is like on the plain scale is a little bit more plain. I think You've Got Mail has this beautiful like warmth and like texture to it that I love. You know, like I think that as I was watching the movie, I kept recognizing like this warmth that I remember from rom-coms of this age that I feel like isn't really there in terms of like the visual. I think it's probably just the fact that the majority of these movies are like probably shot on digital, and what I'm recognizing
is the film artifact.
Is the film, which is like no shade on digital. I think digital's great, but like you have to. I feel like you have to do more work to give it that like warmth and texture.
Warmth and texture specifically. I was like, digital lends itself to like the Fincher style, that like cold and hyper perfect. And,
and you can add that texture, you can add that warmth to it, like we mentioned when we were talking about
Glass Onion and Knives Out and all that. Yeah,
right. It's like you can do that and make it look just like film. Yeah, but I feel like most of the movies now aren't really even trying to do that.
Well,
they're just trying to like.
And I'll also say, I think You've Got Mail and Sleepless in Seattle are kind of like a dying breed movie. Like they don't come out like this anymore. Like, yeah, we get rom-coms and stuff, but it feels like a lot of them have to have a hook.
Right.
Like they're not like, when's the last time just like a good rom-com came out that you like wide release? Like there's been streaming ones. Like I can't think of the last time in a theater that like just a rom-com came out.
Yeah.
That I was like excited and I saw or whatever. I don't know.
I mean, like there's like the one with George Clooney and Julia Roberts that just came out.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like they are there.
I heard that was pretty good.
Yeah, but it's like, again, like I don't,
I mean, Bros just came out and bombed.
Exactly.
I feel bad about that.
Yeah,
I didn't go see it. I should have.
Same.
I was busy.
Right.
Yeah.
There are rom-coms being made, and there's good ones being made.
Yeah.
But so many of them are going just straight to streaming,
Which you lose them in the shuffle.
Right. Yeah.
So that's a bummer. But yeah, that was a fun part about going back and watching both of these kind of back to back.
Yeah.
Was just. Yeah, it's like you don't see many like this anymore.
It's just like the heyday of the mid-budget movie.
Yeah, right. You know when you just have Dave Chappelle in the background of him, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just as like in 2 or 3 scenes, and that's it, right?
That being said, this was before Dave Chappelle was like Dave Chappelle.
Oh yeah, you
know? But that's still just like
this was before
weird.
Dave Chappelle was Dave Chappelle, and definitely before Dave Chappelle was Dave Chappelle.
Yeah.
Legit.
Also, I love the Rob Reiner cameo. In Sleepless in Seattle, because he also directed When Harry Met Sally, which is just my favorite.
Well, I love that scene when he's like, "Is my butt cute? Well, let me see."
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I like that. I like their friendship. It's one of those like things that's kind of you don't see enough in movies where everyone's like, you have to explain why their friends like, no, sometimes guys are just
sometimes they're work buddies and also buddies on the side.
Yeah, like I enjoy that. I like when he's like they go out to lunch and they just talk about the actual I like that. I like that doesn't need more exploration. It's just like, yeah, he's a dude with friends. Like what do you want from him?
Yeah.
I like that. That was a fun. I think these movies are very like forward thinking in a lot of ways. Like, right? Imagine other movies of that time if they said, "Do I have a cute butt?" to his male friend, he'd be like, "No, whoa,
I'm not gay, bro."
Yeah, it's like that's what that would have been, and this was just like the playful, like, "Well, let me." Yeah.
I love the way that like Nora Ephron like builds the world and builds these characters and just like these random little like they talk like people in a way that like a lot of
Sleepless in Seattle, the one scene with the lady he's building her house.
Yeah.
Memorable character,
right?
You know what I mean? Like, that's something that I will say about Marvel that they'll do quite a bit. Like Hawkeye, I mentioned that I'm reading the Matt Fraction comic right now, so it's like on my mind. But like the tracksuit mafia guys, this is a very random example, but like you remember them because they make these dumb goons that shouldn't be characters, just stupid and say funny things.
Right.
And so you're like, memorable character. I get not like a character deep at all, but memorable moment with this random guy. Rom-coms do that amazingly.
Right.
When Harry Met Sally, I mean, obviously, I'll have what she's having. Like, it's just like that one little touch where you're like, everyone remembers that.
Yeah. I mean, and even just like in scenes where like they're just like multiple people talking, they just like talk like people.
Yeah.
I can't remember specifically. There's a specific example in You've Got Mail where it's Meg Ryan, Rosie O'Donnell, and then the two guys working at the office.
Yeah.
And at one point, Meg Ryan's like describing something, and then she just kind of gets sidetracked for a second, then gets back on topic. It's like it's just like very human, normal dialogue, and then you have these moments. Then it like builds to these beautiful like monologues or one-liners and things like that. But I love the way that she writes like dialogue and people. Man, just shout out Nora. We love you.
Yeah,
rest in power, King.
I mean, I agree.
But yeah, I love these movies, man. They hold a very special place in my heart, so I want to show them to as many people as possible. Yeah, because I feel like
great Valentine's Day movies.
Great Valentine's Day movies,
like,
man.
You think of a Valentine's Day movie, you have two that are the right answer. Like, they're just every bit. I mean, and not to say that there's not like they're not memorable. When I don't mean to like pare them down to just that, to just being these little romance movies.
No,
I think they're very smartly written.
100%.
I think they're very well presented, and the performances are great, and the direction's great. Like, I'm all about them. But yeah, they're like the perfect quintessential Valentine's Day movies.
Yeah, man.
Watch them.
Yeah.
And they make for a great double feature.
They really do.
Yeah.
Like that's why I wanted.
They're
to,
different enough, but also they have enough similarities that you're like on board with it.
100%. Yeah, like we mentioned up top, the tone. There's some differences in the tone, but I see that as only a plus, especially when watching these two kind of one after the other, combined in some way. Yeah, I love these movies. Anything you learned? Anything like that?
I think in terms of like lessons, it's definitely kind of what I touched on a little bit of like that meta nature of like they're on different ends of the, different places in the country, but she's listening to him on a radio. And so we hear him with an image of her and then we cut to him and see him. And then like the way they like transcend time and space in that way for the audience to be like this longing of like, it's kind of like I talked about in the RRR episode. It's like, they set the stage and I was like, I want to see these two guys fight so bad. And then when they meet, you're like, wait, no, don't fight, friends.
I want to see these two smash so bad.
I kept saying that during freaking You've Got Mail. I was like, I want to see them smash. But it's like this idea that like, who ever would have thought of breaking the mold of a romance movie? Because where you need them to have chemistry, but they share almost no screen time together, and all of that is so impressive. And I want to like go in and watch how they do it, and all the moments they like cross cut between them, and it's so many things like that I think is so impressive. And you can build longing and you can build tension without having to have the conventions and the necessities of the genre. You can fight outside of that. And that to me is the Sleepless in Seattle's greatest victory is that they share no screen time together, and yet I want them to meet so badly.
100%.
You know what I mean? Like we have a whole movie and You've Got Mail of them just being wonderful on screen together.
Like both having wonderful on-screen chemistry, hating each other and loving each other.
Yeah, it's like we get that Sleepless in Seattle, we don't, but Sleepless in Seattle also completely works as a rom-com. And I think that's fascinating, and I want to like study that. Yeah. And see how you can transpose that into like the RRR method, where it's like two opposed. Well, No Country for Old Men is another example of that, right? Of like these two characters who share literally no screen time together, but they're on trajectories together. They're fated to intersect, and then the Coen brothers do what Coen brothers do and intervene with that. Yeah. But it's that idea, right? Of
watch No Country for Old Men. That's a good damn movie.
Yes, it is.
Not very romantic, but it is very good.
I don't know what you're talking about, but him and that bag of money. No, I think that's really what I'm taking away from it is that idea of like not being beholden to the conventions of the genre and using images and sound to connect characters even though they're not on screen together. It's fascinating. I think it's really cool and really effective. How about yourself? What you taking away? I mean, you've seen these so many times.
I've seen these so many times. It's like I'm almost too close to them at this point. I have seen specifically Sleepless in Seattle more times than I can count. I have seen that movie. It's one of my mom's like favorite movies. So I have seen that one so many times. It's like hard to step away from it and like look at it objectively. But yeah, like you mentioned, like being able to kind of like step out of the genre and try to break conventions, but still like make it a wonderful love story. You know what I mean? Like, I think that is such an interesting way. Like the magic trick that they pull off with that, I think is phenomenal. But then also just like casting is so freaking important. You know what I mean? Like finding, especially when we're talking about romance, like finding two people that truly work well together and clearly have a relationship together in some way, shape, or form, I think is so important. I think Meg Ryan and Tom Hanks are phenomenal in both of these movies. It's like like they're not like absolutely acting their asses off, but they're so like 100% believable and hilarious and lovable in both of these movies. Like casting is so important especially for a movie like this.
Yeah, and also the side characters
shout out to Rosie O'Donnell. I said this. Shout out to Rosie O'Donnell. I miss Rosie O'Donnell. It's like, man, fuck Hollywood and all that kind of shit. It's like she just happened to be lesbian and also dislike the Iraq war, and they were all like, you know what, get this lady out of here. So Rosie O'Donnell, come back, we miss you. She's doing stuff, but like I miss her. I miss her like having roles like this and she had the show and all that kind of stuff. I miss you, Rosie O'Donnell.
Yeah. Well, casting I think that's very true. And like again, when talking about when Harry Met Sally, it's I'll have what she's having.
Yeah.
You have to cast that person.
Yeah.
You can't just grab some extra to do it. You have to find the person right for that. It's like so in depth.
I mean, you've got like Bill Pullman, Greg Kinnear, like all of these side characters that are like Rob Reiner, Dave Chappelle. Like they're just so perfectly cast.
Yeah, it's that is such an important, especially in movies based on the chemistry, which romance movies are entirely. You know what I mean? Like that's a great lesson. Yeah. Good ass movies.
Good ass movies, man. Okay, B segment.
Besegment.
If you like just a quick kind of quick discussion topic. Who is this generation, which is kind of a weird way of putting it, but this generation's Meg Ryan.
So
Tom
we
Hanks.
hinted and we didn't say because I was like, "There's a right answer," and I'm curious if we're going to agree. But it's Emma Stone and Ryan. Gosling.
Emma Stone and Ryan
Gosling. I mean, have you seen Crazy Stupid Love?
Have you seen La La Land?
Have you seen La La Land?
La La Land. I want them to be. I want every 2 years for them to make a movie together. Like
they've made like 5 too,
yeah,
which
it
is the crazy
like,
part. Crazy Stupid Love, La La Land,
and then
Gangster
Squad.
Gangster Squad. Yes.
I need to rewatch that.
I've never seen it.
I've seen it and I remember not loving it.
Things, yeah.
They're good in it.
They've made a bunch of movies together, and they have the best chemistry.
They have such great chemistry. I would love them to be like because I would love them to be another kind of Crazy Stupid Love.
Yes.
Genre-esque like
Crazy Stupid Love has one of the funniest scenes I've ever seen in a movie, and it has one of the funniest shots I've ever seen in a movie.
Yeah,
and it's that like where everything is coming to a head, where all the different plots are coming together, and it's just when Ryan Gosling takes that ring off. Yeah. It's the funniest thing I've ever like. I had to pause the movie.
What's his freaking name? Kevin Bacon's name. They keep saying it. It's gonna drive me nuts.
Look it up. I forget it every time, but it's just because I get so distracted by him.
Oh, it's so good. That's another really, really good movie. People don't talk about Crazy Stupid Love enough. I absolutely adore that movie. That movie is like really
David Lindhagen. It's
David Lindhagen.
This is David Lindhagen. Takes the ring off and punches it in the face.
So
that
good.
in the other bit where he's like, "Keep it in the family."
Yeah,
the cop does after that scene, and Ryan Gosling just goes. This little laugh. That movie is so good.
I mean, the scene where is it when he opens his wallet and it's
the Velcro? It's just
and he just steps back like he's so offended. Oh,
he throws
so
his
good,
shoes
dude.
off the
shout out.
I love that movie so much.
Yeah, man.
And it's a good movie. Like that's the part we forget. It's not just funny. It's not just like got great chemistry. It's just a good ass movie.
Yeah, seriously, super
I love
good
Crazy
movie.
Stupid Love.
I'm gonna rewatch that one soon.
Yes.
I love that movie. That's a movie I rewatch quite often.
I rewatch it a lot too.
I rewatch that every couple of years.
A friend recommended it to me, and then we were doing like recommendations. Everything that was one of them, and then I watched it like 2 months later, and then I watched it again. And then I bought the Blu-ray, and I watched the Blu-ray twice.
Yeah.
Like I love it.
I think that's an example of a romantic comedy that also looks really good. That movie looks good.
It looks great. And that one also does interesting things with the camera and stuff. Like nothing like revolutionary, but it's making choices. You know,
100%.
In ways that I really appreciate. Yeah, dude, Crazy Stupid Love. Who else? Like, is there another pairing that kind of matches Emma Stone and Ryan Gosling? I'm trying to think.
I mean, no, I don't know about in this era anyways. You know what I mean? Like I'm sure there are other famous like on-screen couples that did it more than once or twice.
I was gonna say that's kind of the big thing of like it's the doing it multiple times because there's been like one-offs like freaking Andy Samberg and Kristen Milioti have amazing chemistry together, but they've made one movie together. You know what I mean?
Not too late, man. It's not too late,
dude. I would watch Kristen Milioti be in she's in the Penguin show, and I'm really excited about that.
I didn't know that.
She's playing Sophia Falcone.
Ooh, that's fun.
It was very exciting.
Very excited.
Weird casting for that character, and I'm so into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. They have great chemistry. There's a lot. You find a lot, but not many who have done the like.
I'm sure there's a listicle out there somewhere.
Yeah, the meta pairing of these two people in a bunch of kind of similar movies. It just doesn't happen very often, but. I mean, you kind of got Bradley Cooper and Jennifer Lawrence, but it's not the same because they're just in a bunch of movies together.
Yeah,
it's not like they're paired off in all of them and they're romantic in all of them. I mean, it's just Silver Linings Playbook, but they've in a bunch of other movies together.
Yeah.
It's just not the same.
Yeah. I mean, they've been in several freaking whatchamacallit, David O. Russell.
Yeah.
Fuck you, David O. Russell.
Fuck you, David O. Russell.
They've been in a few David O. Russell movies together, whether they were playing on-screen couple or not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
So there's a right answer to that question.
So B segment part 2. There's a bunch of DC announcements that have been recently. Let's talk about it. He's gonna have way more thoughts about it than I do. I'm not nearly as up to date as he is.
Essentially, just talking about this is film news. I think it's interesting and important to like keep up with.
100%,
right?
100%.
Like this is the first we've seen the cinematic universe thing since forever.
Yeah.
Right. We've never seen one fail and restart. You know what I mean? Because the Dark Universe, Dead on Impact, gone right. Like had one movie and we didn't even see anything
that one's
else.
so disappointing too because I feel like there's a cool version of that.
Oh, there's an incredible
but it's just the
version.
fact that they like wasted it.
Dude, there's an incredible version that builds into like League of Extraordinary Gentlemen or something like that, right? Like
there's
awesome.
a cool version of that.
But DC is being run by Peter Safran and James Gunn. They're actually the first. This is also important to note. They're the first heads of DC Studios. There's not been DC was run essentially comics, movies, everything in one. Versus the Marvel method, which has Marvel Studios and then Marvel Publishing with the comics, and then games were separate from that as well. This is Peter Safran and James Gunn are co-CEOs of DC Studios. They're the Kevin Feige's of DC. And so they just announced their slate, and it is batshit crazy.
Which I love.
No, I love. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, there's a bit of me that's like, is this self-serving, James Gunn? Like, I love you to death. You're one of my heroes. I shit you not. Like, I think about it all the time, and I love him as a filmmaker. But some of that shit's like, you don't want to throw, like, I don't know, we have The Flash, and that's a whole controversial thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he's in an interesting position also where he still has movies from the last regime.
Well, let's talk about that. What is staying that was that we had from before?
Still a bit fuzzy on that.
Right.
Shazam, I believe, is staying.
Okay.
Even with the Zachary Levi controversy. Great, right? I think James Gunn had a good answer to that where he's like, I can't just change plans because an actor said something I disagree with. Like, Zachary Levi is actively an idiot for what he said, but whatever. He's not doing a criminal thing. Yeah. It's just an idiotic thing. Yeah. And so I think James Gunn is in a position where he's trying to handle that right now. Who knows how that's going to affect it. Also, we haven't seen the movie. If it bombs, who knows? But Shazam is kind of staying. Then The Flash is going to reset everything, which The Flash starring Ezra Miller. Yeah. That's going to doing Flashpoint. It's a famous comic where they kind of started a new DC started over essentially and whatever. That happens every so often. So they're doing that, and then Blue Beetle's coming out, which is a fucking wild pick. And
I know nothing about Blue Beetle.
No, I'm super
literally nothing.
I know very little. It's also not the first Blue Beetle. It's the second Blue Beetle, different character, but it's his name's Jaime Reyes. Okay. And he's like a kid in high school who gets this like alien technology thing grafted into his spine, and it builds this like suit around him. It like the set photos is just like, man, you straight out of a comic book, aren't you?
I love it.
It's awesome. So I'm really excited to see what they do with that. After that, Aquaman 2 is coming out, and there's the potential that we'll get Aquaman 3. So two of the previous movies are carrying over into the regime. The other important note is that they will have like side movies called Elseworlds. Yeah. Which is the Batman, Joker, Teen Titans Go was the other one he referenced. But so there's stuff that will come out that's not in continuity. The Matt Reeves Batman verse is just his own. That will not be crossing over. Same. Not that I am not curious to see how that would have gone in another Earth, though, in an Elseworlds Earth. Yeah. Not this one, because Matt Reeves is doing the Lord's work with the Batverse right now.
Just let him do his thing. We are smart enough and capable enough of knowing the difference between the two. Yeah. It's not that confusing.
And he literally said, we're going to label them DC Elseworlds versus DC Universe. Yeah. Universe is mainline continuity. DC Elseworlds is just random shit that
Love
cool
it.
people make.
I love
that. I've been saying for years.
I wish Marvel would do the same.
Yes.
And they're kind of touching it with What If, but I also don't like What If.
Yeah, What If is just like it doesn't count. You know what I mean?
Right.
I don't think. But anyway, so then he started announcing the slate for the first chapter, which Marvel has phases. These are called chapters, whatever. But it's labeled Gods and Monsters, which I think is cool.
Yeah.
Gods and Monsters is like, there's a comic series, there's an animated movie. I don't know a ton about it, but it's essentially just going like, look, we're going to do mythology, we're going to do kind of supernatural stuff. Like we want to cover the spectrum of what DC can be. He announced, I'm just going to run through stuff quickly. He announced Creature Commandos. What? Frankenstein. I don't know. Waller with Viola Davis coming back, which is important to note.
Wild.
And Peacemaker season 2 is on hold with some members of that being in Waller.
Interesting.
So that's kind of interesting, cool. Then he announced Superman Legacy, which is loosely based on a Superman comic called All-Star Superman.
Which is supposed to be like the best Superman story.
Yes, pretty definitively people have dubbed it. And I need to read it. It's got one of my favorite comic panels of all time, which I talked about on the RRR episode. He's right. James Gunn is writing that script, and it's looking like he's going to direct it.
Which is a wild
choice for Superman.
Knowing how he writes and how he directs,
his sense of humor,
that feels
strange.
We'll see what
we'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see. But doing that's going to go into Lanterns, which is cool because there was a Green Lantern show going to be on HBO Max. Did not.
Is it just Lanterns or is it like Lantern Corps?
It's called Lanterns, and so the show is going to be about John. I'm a huge nerd. Sorry, guys.
What?
Yeah. The show is going to be about Hal Jordan, the most famous and first Green Lantern, and then John Stewart, who is typically the Justice League Green Lantern.
Got it, yeah.
In a lot of the animated stuff, it's been John Stewart, and it was described as like True Detective with Green Lanterns, and that sounds awesome.
That sounds sick as hell.
I know. So it's essentially like a buddy cop detective story with Green Lanterns, and I'm really excited about that.
Will it have the same tone?
No, that's the question mark.
Like, no, right?
We know very little.
Weird.
That's going to be really cool. I'm positive I'm missing something here, but then he talked about The Brave and the Bold, which has some fans very worried. The Brave and the Bold being Batman. And it's Grant Morrison's Batman, which means it's Damian Wayne's Robin. Now, I'm excited just because we're getting Robin.
Yeah.
I'm sad it's not Dick Grayson, the first Robin, which is like, why is he get shafted and everything? My hope is that Nightwing already exists in this universe. He referenced the Bat family. It made my week. I literally ordered the Grant Morrison Batman book the next day.
Yeah.
So that's being shipped to me. Past that, it's other.
There was some conversation about
Booster Gold.
Okay.
Booster Gold, which the premise of Booster Gold, I know nothing. I need to get some comics and do some research. But Booster Gold, the premise of him is he's a loser from the future who travels back in time to get fame and money and not be a loser anymore with future technology and be a superhero. Apparently, there's a lot of people who dub him maybe the most fun character in comics.
That's great.
I'm super into it. I'm super excited. I want to dive into some Booster Gold. There's a lot of great casting thoughts for that one.
Like what? Who would be casting?
My kind of first throw out pick was Top Gun Maverick. What's his name?
I remember you're talking about Miles, not
Miles Teller.
The other one.
Glenn Powell.
Glenn
Powell as Booster Gold is like perfect. Somebody threw out the guy from Game Night who plays the idiot, and you haven't seen Game Night, but after you do, the guy that said Coy Jandreau said that, and I was immediately like, damn, that's might be perfect. The right choice. Anyway, so that's a fun one. A couple other people. There's a chance. I think there's a legitimate chance Glenn Powell plays Hal Jordan in Lanterns, which I would be super into.
Great.
Also a great choice.
Also great casting.
But past that, they're doing Themyscira, or Paradise Lost is what it's called. It's about Wonder Woman's Themyscira, but Wonder Woman is not in it. It was described as Game of Thrones, but on Themyscira. I don't know what that is. Even less is known.
So is Wonder Woman being carried over from the previous universe?
Good question. Patty Jenkins not coming back, so we don't know about Gal Gadot yet.
Yeah.
That's also another weird thing. But the last big thing he announced was Swamp Thing.
Yeah.
Which is crazy because I'm reading a Swamp Thing comic.
And
James Mangold is in early talks to direct. The day they talked about it, James Mangold posted a picture from a Swamp Thing comic.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, wait, now the correct answer is Guillermo del Toro. is the correct answer to direct a Swamp Thing movie, but I think James Mangold is a sneaky great pick.
James Mangold's a great director.
He's a great director, and he always, he's the king of dad cinema.
Yeah.
Did I lie?
Not even remotely.
Yeah.
That's so funny. Shit, you are exactly right with that.
Yeah, he's the king of dad cinema.
Freaking Walk the
Line, Ford v Ferrari.
Logan
in some ways,
310 to Yuma. Like
Indiana Jones 5.
Indiana Jones 5. Shit, that is so true.
So I love James Mangold. Another one of my like directing heroes.
Yeah.
That's really I think that's a sneaky cool choice for Swamp Thing. And Swamp Thing also read it. The Alan Moore run is incredible. It's so good. I'm like halfway through it right now. It's so rad. If you're gonna read a comic book, like that's one of the best, I think.
Right.
But that's kind of the slate as of right
was
now.
Supergirl?
Whoa! I knew I was blocking. I've been talking about this so much. My brain is like, don't talk about it again. Shane doesn't want to hear. Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, which if you watched The Whaties, was my favorite comic of 2022.
Yeah.
It is unreal.
Yeah.
And it's new. And they're making a Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow adaptation that I believe Tom King is writing. The movie, I believe, because he's one of the core writers, one of the core creative team guys for Gods and Monsters in the DCU.
Sick.
Which is so cool. I mean, Drew Goddard is another core team, which is so fucking cool. James Gunn, obviously, being the other one of them. Right. There's a couple people they announced, but that wasn't as public, so I haven't done a ton of research on that. But Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow is getting a fucking adaptation, and man, if it ain't one of the prettiest comics I've ever read and one of the best comics I've ever read. It's weird that it's coming like 3 projects after Superman, but who gives a shit? I'm in, dude.
Yeah.
I'm so excited about that. It's going to be gorgeous. It's going to be so good. And that brings me to really why I wanted to talk about this. Marvel has this tendency to go, there's a barcode in one frame of an episode of She-Hulk every time. Every single episode will have one. And if you scan that, it'll take you to a comic book that this is based on. James Gunn went, hey guys, Batman's based on Grant Morrison's run. Superman's based on All-Star Superman. Woman of Tomorrow is a literal direct adaptation of Woman of Tomorrow. Alan Moore's Swamp Thing is the one you're going to want to read for this.
Yeah.
He's just throwing it to the source material.
Yeah.
Which is something that, like, why the fuck don't all of these comic people do? Because guess what? You can't find Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow right now.
Sold out.
Sold out on Amazon. Comic book stores don't have them. The Grant Morrison, normally you order something on Amazon, it shows up 2 days later. The Grant Morrison book is taking forever to show up for a lot of people.
Yeah.
That one's a bit harder to find in comic book stores. I went to a comic book store and picked up the next Swamp Thing book, and then I had to order that one because I couldn't find. Whatever, it's fine. I wasn't happy about it, but I did what I had to do.
Yeah. Which this is such a good thing, though.
This is such an amazing thing. Cool. People are getting into comics. He's being direct and honest with everyone.
Yeah.
Comics are such an important medium, and superheroes are so often the gateway into that medium.
Right.
And that is why I think this is amazing, because like if you read Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow and you love this like cosmic flavor it's got, dude, there's so many cosmic comics that have nothing to do with superheroes that are just little like graphic novels or like original characters. If you fucking like Alan Moore's Swamp Thing, there's a million horror comics that are just as cool, or maybe not just as cool, but almost as cool. If you like Booster Gold, there's a million Booster Golds out there. Like, dude, this is like, take this as your chance to like jump in and keep up with this weird chapter of this thing, because he's made it incredibly easy. He literally tweeted the covers of the books he's basing these on. It's so easy to find and so easy to do in a way that comics desperately need right now.
Yeah.
Because it's a medium I love. It's like it's something that's dying in a lot of ways, but man, you'll never meet a more passionate group, for better or worse. Yeah. A group of people than comic book fans, and I'm so excited and happy that James Gunn is being so open and honest about that, because it gave me stuff to read. Yeah, I haven't read the Grant Morrison Batman book yet, so I got the first omnibus, which I went the expensive route, but I got the first one, and I'm gonna read that, and I'm super excited. I'm reading Alan Moore's Swamp Thing. I read Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. Yeah, read Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, please. Yes. Anyway, I just think this is an interesting point in, like, everyone keeps talking about, oh, the superhero thing's over. It's going to start declining when nope, we're just getting started, guys. Like, we need to find the balance of it, the right way to do it. But what James Gunn is doing is really interesting and multimedia helpful, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm so excited all these people are discovering comics or discovering new comics even. New, maybe not that many people are like never read a comic book before and are now buying them, which I hope that's the case.
Right.
Comics rule, dude. They're so rad. Anyway, I just think that's an interesting thing to look at and see the evolution of and how fucking weird it is in comparison to like what Marvel was for so long. Like now Marvel's doing the weird characters, but
it took them a long
time to get there other than Guardians,
Right.
I'm in on this like Creature Commandos and Booster Gold and Swamp Thing and like all these weird. The Authority is another one I didn't talk about, which I know almost nothing about the Authority. I'm in, dude. This is cool. I love James Gunn and I love the creative team he's putting together. And he also said, and this I think is even more important than anything else for the film industry, he said, we're not gonna rush into productions. We won't do it. If the script isn't done, we're waiting.
Yeah.
We're developing these movies and then putting them out. We're not going to like Marvel so often will be halfway through shooting and then they're changing the third act.
Yeah.
He's like, that's not happening. That's not how we're running things. So it's going to be slower, but you're going to get better things because of it. And I want us to do that as like a film society and as a film industry is like, dude, I'm fine waiting because you rush it and it's going to be bad forever.
Yeah.
Like, no, dude, let's take our time, pump the brakes. I think that's also super cool. And I want more studio heads to take that as a big ass lesson.
100%.
Anyway, that's my DC spiel, my rant on that. I'll do it again, and I'll do it again and again and again, and probably again later tonight.
Comics, cool.
Comics, cool, dude.
Actually, you know what? I'm gonna kick it off with some recommendations.
Bet.
So, we've already mentioned a couple times in this episode. Maybe the best rom-com ever written or made.
The Human Centipede.
Is The Human Centipede. I mean, why aren't you... No, When Harry Met Sally.
Yeah.
Like, that is my number one, like, rom-com recommendation, When Harry Met Sally. If you haven't watched that one, please go and watch it. The movie is phenomenal. Just phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's a great movie. I think, like, another solid B recommendation for this would be About Time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, dude.
Because we've recommended About Time before, I think.
I recommended About Time before. We were talking about time travel, I think.
Right.
In Primer.
We were doing Primer, yeah.
Yeah.
Watch About Time as well. That movie is about more than just a romance. It's about, like, love in all of its forms for all of your family and the people around you. And it is just so beautiful. I love that movie. I have recommended that movie to so many people, and I will continue to recommend it to more because I absolutely love that movie. I think and then maybe my third one is every single Valentine's Day, me and my wife Megan watch My Big Fat Greek Wedding. I'm not sure why, we just love that movie. So this Valentine's Day, if you're looking for a movie to watch, turn on My Big Fat Greek Wedding because you know I'm going to be watching it.
Nice.
Yep.
I mentioned mine earlier in the episode. I'm going to throw it to you singles out there. You want to watch a rom-com about friendship? Watch I Love You, Man.
Great one.
That and also, this is dark, but I think Gone Girl is a hilarious movie to watch on Valentine's Day.
That is so funny.
So for your literal Valentine's Day watch, Gone Girl. But my recommendation is really I Love You, Man, because I desperately love that movie. It's very funny. It's very sweet. It's a rom-com about friendship, and that's pretty great.
Yeah.
That's what I got for you.
I love it. Well, now you've got some recommendations. Go watch Sleepless in Seattle. Go watch When Harry Met Sally. Go watch You've Got Mail. Go watch, I Love You, Man. You've got a ton of stuff to watch, so go watch it. Or don't. I don't know. Live your life.